The year was 1951. Britain was rebuilding after the war, and while most motorcycles were loud, greasy and built for adrenaline junkies, one strange little machine rolled quietly onto the streets. It didn't roar, it whispered. Police officers rode it, commuters admired it, and mechanics scratched their heads trying to figure out what on earth Velocette was thinking. This was the Velocette LE mkII, the motorcycle that looked more like your grandpa's sewing machine on wheels than a proper British bike. Yet, underneath that polite exterior hid some wild futuristic secrets that would influence motorcycle engineering decades later. And by the end of this video, you'll realize why this weird little bike was one of the most advanced and underrated motorcycles of its time. But before we go further, smash that subscribe button like you're trying to start a stubborn old British bike that refuses to kick over. Because what's coming next will completely change the way you see this quiet legend. So let's uncover the hidden story behind the 1951 Velocette LE mkII, the motorcycle that dared to be different. Because what Velocette secretly built wasn't just a motorcycle. It was a revolution disguised as a gentleman's ride. When you think of motorcycles from the 1950s, you imagine leather jackets, oil stains, and loud exhausts echoing through London streets. But the Velocette LE mkII, nope. This thing was the exact opposite. LE actually stood for little engine, but the name didn't do justice to how much thought went into it. It was designed by Charles Udall, Velocette's chief engineer, to be quiet, comfortable and refined, like the Rolls-Royce of small motorcycles. The British police loved it so much they ordered thousands. It was affectionately nicknamed the noddy bike, because officers would politely nod at people while patrolling. Yes, imagine cops cruising silently on these things, looking like proper gentlemen instead of bad boys. And here's the twist. This calm little machine hid an engineering secret that most people missed. Because inside that quiet frame was a setup that was decades ahead of its time. Something that would later appear in scooters and touring bikes around the world. So, what was this hidden genius? Let's pop the lid open, literally. The Velocette LE mkII was powered by a flat-twin, water-cooled, 4-stroke 192cc engine mounted horizontally under the frame. Now, pause for a second. This was 1951. Most bikes were still air-cooled and noisy. But Velocette had built a water-cooled side-valve flat-twin that ran so smooth and quiet you could hear the clock ticking in your living room over its idle. It produced around 8 horsepower and could reach around 65 km/h, 40 mph. Not fast, but incredibly stable and refined. The cylinder layout gave it perfect balance, and the engine sat low for a super steady ride. And the frame? It was made from pressed steel panels with built-in leg shields, something you'd expect to see decades later in scooters like the Vespa or Honda Cub. In short, the LE mkII was the grandparent of today's civilized commuters, but this quiet brilliance came at a cost, and it almost destroyed Velocette's reputation. Velocette had poured years of research and money into the LE project. The bike was complicated, expensive to build, and hand-finished to perfection. Each LE mkII had precision engineering, from its shaft drive, yes, no messy chain, to the rubber-mounted engine that absorbed vibration like a luxury car. It even had a 3-speed handshift gearbox and an enclosed engine that kept your trousers clean. But the public wasn't ready for it. They wanted excitement, not sophistication. Riders looked at the LE and said, "Man, that's not a real motorcycle." While the police loved it, ordinary riders couldn't justify the high price tag, about 160s, which was quite a lot back then for a 192cc machine. And here's the tragic irony. Velocette had built something too advanced for its time. Yet hidden inside that financial disaster were ideas that the motorcycle industry would eventually steal and perfect. Fast forward a few decades and you start to see echoes of the Velocette LE everywhere. The Honda Goldwing, flat engine, water cooling, shaft drive, all ideas Velocette experimented with in the 1950s. Modern scooters with quiet engines and enclosed panels. Velocette did it first. Even BMW's flat-twin boxer engines owe a subtle nod to this design philosophy. Smoothness, symmetry, and balance. The LE MkII also introduced comfort innovations rarely seen back then. Telescopic front forks for smoother handling. Swing arm rear suspension with hydraulic damping. Footboards instead of foot pegs for a relaxed upright riding position. It was so comfortable that police officers could patrol for hours without fatigue. Portal from Asatai, Isul, Tercenos Hair, de Son, Chatterson, Triumph, and BSA counterparts were busy shaking their fillings loose. But while it was futuristic on paper, in reality it suffered from something that no amount of engineering could fix. And that's what we'll get into next. The LE MkII was quiet, refined, and practical, which was exactly why bikers didn't like it. In the 1950s, motorcycles were symbols of rebellion and noise. The Velocette LE was the complete opposite. Silent, polite, and fully clothed in bodywork. It didn't even look like a motorcycle. It looked like your neighbour's lawnmower with ambition. People used to joke, is that a bike or a teapot on wheels? But over time, something interesting happened. Collectors and enthusiasts began to appreciate it for what it really was. A masterpiece of engineering and craftsmanship. Today, the Velocette LE has a cult following. Owners admire its whisper-quiet engine, smooth shaft drive, and timeless design. Many of them say riding one feels like gliding on an electric cloud that still smells like petrol. And here's the kicker. Even though Velocette went bankrupt in 1971, their legacy lives on through the very ideas that were once mocked. Because behind the LE MkII lies a story of innovation, stubbornness, and one company's determination to make motorcycles more civilized, a story that deserves to be remembered. Even after production ended, the Velocette LE's DNA continued to influence motorcycle design. The bike's water cooling concept became mainstream decades later. The shaft drive became a standard feature in luxury touring motorcycles, and that obsession with refinement and balance that became the foundation of modern commuter bikes. In fact, Honda engineers once admitted that they studied small British machines when designing the Honda Cub, the world's best-selling motorcycle. Guess which one of those British bikes was known for its quietness, reliability, and full enclosure? Yep, the Velocette LE. It's almost poetic that the very ideas people laughed at in the 1950s became the backbone of motorcycles that conquered the world. And to this day, whenever someone restores a Velocette LE MkII, they aren't just fixing an old bike, they're reviving a dream that was far ahead of its time. So, what's the hidden secret of the 1951 Velocette LE MkII? It's that innovation doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums quietly in the corner, waiting for the world to catch up. Velocette tried to build a motorcycle that was polite, elegant and futuristic. And even though it didn't win the race in its own time, its ideas ended up winning the war of motorcycle evolution. So next time you see a quiet commuter or a luxury tourer humming down the road, Remember, that quiet DNA started with a strange little British bike from 1951. And if you love stories like this, where forgotten engineering marvels get the spotlight they deserve, make sure you're subscribed to AB Tech Lab, because we're just getting started uncovering the lost machines that shaped our automotive world. Until next time, stay curious, ride safe, and never underestimate the quiet ones.